Okay, and what year are you in? You're in the advanced standing MSW program.
I am. I'm in my second semester of three, so I'll graduate at the end of this summer.
Do you know what you want to do?
Uh, I'm interested in lobbying and advocacy. I know that might be difficult to break into immediately post grad because I don't have a ton of experience, but really just anything regarding the legislative process is something that interests me, specifically like advocating for populations who don't have people advocating for them.
Tell me a little bit about what led you to Eastern Florida, what you thought of your program there, what program you did there, and then what led you on to FSU.
So I actually started my classes at Eastern Florida when I was a sophomore at Eau Gallie High School through the dual enrollment program. So I started off taking like 2 classes a semester, and then my junior and senior year, I just continued to take a couple of courses there. And by the time that I graduated from high school in 2017, I had 2 semesters left to finish a complete Associates of Arts degree. So that's what I did. I stayed in Melbourne and I went to Eastern Florida for 2 more semesters, finished in the spring of 2018, and then transferred to Florida State. And I can honestly say, without the dual enrollment program, I don't know if I would be where I am now in my educational career, because it was incredibly relieving to know that I wouldn't have to figure out how to pay for all of my classes. Initially, I applied to FSU as a political science major, and I wanted to go to law school afterwards. And it was during my first semester at FSU, taking those courses, that I realized that the social work track was probably more of my speed. Political science, it was a great major to be in for that time, and the professors were awesome, but I really wanted to do more kind of boots on the ground and not just learning about these concepts, but learning how to actually make tangible change within these systems. So I applied to the social work program my first semester at FSU, and I got in as a minor. And I originally was a minor, and I took a few courses, and then I was able to declare it as my full major. And I loved it ever since.
You're a student at FSU, you love it. Tell me about FSU as a college, and tell me about the social work department specifically.
I've never had to think about it like this, because I love FSU. I think that something that I've always really appreciated is that every single professor I've ever had has real field experience behind them, and they talk about their personal stories and things that they've done as not only professors, but as professionals, especially within the social work program. Every professor I've had, I'm pretty sure, has pieces that I can read, or projects that they've worked on, or things that they've done. So I know that they're not just teaching me something out of a book, they're teaching me things that they've done themselves. And I think that's really awesome, because then I can ask them questions, and I know that what they're telling me or the advice that they're giving me is 100%, I guess. And I chose FSU because I was interested in law and the legislative process in our governmental systems. And I'm really happy that I chose FSU and I ended up in social work, because it's the exact same thing here. I mean, we have so many opportunities to get involved, with the Capitol being right there, but then also with so many agencies having their headquarters here, like the NASW and things like that, and so many social service agencies. I'm really lucky that I've been able to actually get involved and hopefully make changes wherever I can.
Okay, so I'm going to expand a little bit on what you talked about, where initially you had thought about going into law, but then you decided social work fit better for you. One thing I try to do throughout my videos and the website is really explain to people what social work is about, because I think a lot of people don't know. I think to a lot of people, it's child welfare and it's school, and that's really it. So talk a little bit about what social work as a profession means to you. What are the possibilities within social work, and why was it to you a more almost expansive or appropriate option than law?
I didn't even know that clinical social work was really a thing when I was in high school trying to decide a career. And there is so much to it. I was interested in the major. I learned more about the minor, and that's when I was really exposed to how expansive the field is between clinical social workers or legislative or leadership and administration. There's not just one route you can take. And initially, when I was in my undergrad doing my BSW, I thought maybe clinical social work was what I wanted to do. My field placement was very highly clinical, and I worked with adolescents of moderate to high risk doing case management. And it was in that field placement that I realized I could do this and I could make great change. But what I think my passion lies in and where I'll be the most useful for the field will be in legislative advocacy and leadership. So I applied for my MSW on that track. And I have a lot of friends who are in the clinical track and they absolutely love it. And I think it's really nice to be able to see how I'm a social worker, my friends are social workers, we're doing completely different things, and we probably will be, but we still overlap and we can still ask each other questions and get advice. And I'll come to them for things that might be a little bit more therapeutic or something that I'm not super well versed on. And they'll come to me when they're like, hey, how do we get a bill passed? And I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. Because I think that there's so many avenues that you can take. And I don't know, I chose social work, like I said, because when I was thinking about getting a law degree, I knew that I would be able to help people, because initially I was interested in working for a public defender or a legal aid. And I knew that I would still be able to help people. But I think that what I became more interested was mitigating the societal effects that causes people to end up there. Obviously, the criminal justice system needs a lot of reform. I think that's something we can all agree on. But I chose social work because I realized that if I wanted to touch more individual people and families and communities and be more accessible to whoever needed me, and however I can advocate for them, because they might not know how to advocate because no one's ever taught them, that is really what I want to do.
What would you say is the biggest change you'd like to make or goal you have as a social worker?
Ooh. Biggest change I'd like to make or a goal that I have. Well, I will say that, and I don't know if you want to include this, but I am a first generation student. And I think that something that was always difficult was kind of navigating higher education, but also just adulthood and not really having people there firsthand to give me their experiences or their advice. And I think something that I would love, the biggest change I would like to make is to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to access the resources that they want to and that they know about them. Because if it weren't for so many people in my life that were looking out for me that weren't family, I probably would not be where I am today. So I think the biggest change I would like to make is lifting up those who are underprivileged and underserved so that they can achieve the same things that the rest of us have the opportunity to.
If there's anything else you feel like you'd want to say about the program, about the professors, about social work, about FSU, anything you think and you're like, this would be something that I would have liked to have said, anything else that you would add to talk about your experience overall and anything to do with the program?
I mean, maybe that, getting my BSW and my MSW, I couldn't have asked for an easier transition into graduate school. I applied in the midst of COVID in fall of 2020 is when I applied for my master's degree, and we weren't really sure what was going on. And I think FSU and the college did a really great job of keeping everybody connected and up to date and kind of easing some of those anxieties that came not only with deciding to go to grad school, but also navigating a global pandemic. And that's the truth, because I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this.
That does lead me to another question that I actually forgot to ask. MSW. You had your BSW.
Mm-hmm.
Why continue on for your MSW? What's the advantage of earning your MSW?
So I think that for a lot of my classmates, the advantage for them is when they get their MSW, they're that much closer to licensure and choosing to work clinically. For me, getting an MSW kind of meant that I would be able to hone my education more towards legislative advocacy, social administration. I've taken courses on budgeting and financial analysis for social services, grant writing, legal advocacy, and policy analysis, all through the lens of social work. And my BSW education was phenomenal, but it was a little bit more general. And I learned a little bit about each population and the things that were available to us. And so kind of going for my MSW, it helped me get a little bit more experience with the things that I really wanted to do. On top of that, being advanced standing and having just 3 semesters to complete to have an MSW definitely was an advantage as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, those are all the classes I avoided. So bravo to you. I'm like, family counseling, yes, please.
No,
budgeting,
really
no.
I actually took it's funny because I'm doing the lead certificate. So most of my courses, because I'm advanced standing, I think I had something like 4 courses I had to take, and then I had 4 electives and then my field placement. And my 4 core courses, wonderful. My electives, 3 of those were taken up by the lead certificate, but I had 1 left. And I actually chose to take psychopathology because I was like, if I'm going to be hopefully working on policies that affect these populations, I should know what I'm talking about, because most of the people who are doing the policies don't know what they're talking about.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Shannon. I have really appreciated hearing about your journey through social work and into the macro realm of social work. And I cannot wait to see what you do as a social worker and being a voice for people who need a voice.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't think I've ever talked about my experiences all at once like this. So it was great to be able to go over everything that I've done and hope to do. And I'm sad that my time at the College of Social Work at FSU is coming to an end, but I am excited to see what'll happen next.